Hello friends, a very warm welcome to you all in today's session on Indian polity. I'm Sohail Yusuf and today I'm going to take up a very important topic as far as Indian polity is concerned. The importance of today's topic can be gauged from the fact that the major political commentators and political analysts have described this particular topic as being the conscience of the constitution, as being the soul of the Indian constitution, and as being the novel feature of the Indian constitution. Now, before I take up the introductory part, I want you to have a look at the images which are projected on your screen. Now, these images might, invoke curiosity in your mind, like why is Gujarat a dry state? Or why has Bihar recently banned the consumption and sale of liquor? Similarly, why is government so adamant on ending the triple talaq system among Muslim society? And similarly, why has government recently brought an ordinance, drafted rules which ban the slaughter and consumption of the beef? Now, once this particular lecture is over, I believe most of your queries will be resolved at the end of this particular lecture. Now, the topic which we are going to take up today is in fact the directive principles of the state policy. Now, what are the takeaways of this lecture, or what are the learning objectives of this particular lecture? Firstly, you're going to understand what directive principle of state policy is. Second thing, you're going to understand what is the classification of the directive, how directive principles are classified. Third thing, you're going to understand the importance of directive principles of the state policy. Apart from that, you're going to understand what is the difference between the fundamental rights and directive principles of the state policy, and what is the criticism of the directive principles of the state policy. And most importantly, I will give you mnemonics, I'll give you stories, I'll give you memory palaces in order to remember all directive principles of the state policy starting from Article 36 to 51. Now let's begin. The directive principles of the state policy have been enshrined, have been enumerated in the Part 4 of Indian Constitution from Article 36 to 51. As we know, in our Constitution, there are 22 parts, there are 12 schedules, and around 468 articles, to which, and counting, because the number of articles keep on adding as new legislations come into being. Now, the directive principles of the state policy, as is the case with the major portion of Indian Constitution, as major portion of Indian Constitution has been made by ransacking the major constitutions of the world. Same is the case with directive principles of the state policy. Directive principles of the state policy, they have been borrowed from the Irish Constitution, and who were themselves inspired by the Spanish Constitution. Now, directive principles of the state policy, as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar calls them, they are the novel feature of the Indian Constitution, rightly, as we have said at the introduction of this particular lecture, because these are the features which help in the governance of the country in an effective and efficient manner, keeping all the downtrodden and underprivileged sections of the society into consideration. These are the wholesome principles which help in the governance of the country. Apart from this, the directive principles constitute the philosophy of the Constitution. They, along with the fundamental rights, have been referred to as the soul of the Constitution, right? Dr. Graham Austin has rightly pointed them as being the conscience of the Constitution. Now, when you refer to something as being the soul and conscience of the Constitution, it is quite obvious that if you take soul away from it, if you take conscience away from it, you are literally rendering it dead. So therefore, this thing has to be kept into mind, that there is a great importance as far as directive principles of the state policy is concerned. Now, who was this Granville Austin? You know about Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He's been considered as the architect of the Indian Constitution. Granville Austin was an American historian who died recently in 2014, and he is being considered as one of the famous analysts of the Indian Constitution. As far as the features of the directive principles of state policy are concerned, firstly, it includes ideals. Directive principles of the state policy simply are it is a phrase These are simply the ideals which the state has to keep in mind while it is enacting the procedures and policies for or enacting laws for the governance of the country. Similarly, these are the constitutional instructions which are issued to legislature, to executive, and to administration for better governance of its citizens, and these cannot be ignored by the governments of the day. Similarly, the second point is that these are the instrument of instruction. These resemble the instrument of instructions which were enshrined in the Government of India Act 1935. The instrument of instructions were issued to the governor and governor generals of that time, and now they are issued to the state. State includes your state legislature, union legislature, municipal councils, and the local bodies, urban and rural local bodies, that is the panchayats and the municipal council, which we will be taking up later on in the Article 36 itself. Now they try to ensure the socio-economic democracy. If we look at the democracy, now democracy is of two types, as we know about it. As far as Indian constitution is concerned, there is political democracy, which is ensured by the fundamental rights, and there is socio-economic democracy, which is ensured by the directive principles of the state policy. The directive principles of the state policy basically ensure that they take state towards the principles which are mentioned in the preamble. Preamble में कहा गया है कि that we want to secure for our citizens justice, equality, liberty and fraternity. तो ये जो directive principles of the state policy, they take you a step closer towards realizing that particular objective of justice, equality, liberty and fraternity, right? And they try to ensure a welfare state and not a police state, which was there at the time of the British rule. The directive principles of the state policy, they try to ensure they try to make a welfare state and not a police state. And apart from this, if these principles are implemented in true letter and spirit, our country will truly become heaven on earth. ये राम राज्य बनेगा अगर इन principles को follow किया जाता है. Because if you are banning alcohol, many crimes occur because of the high consumption of alcohol, like domestic violence, murders, rapes, extortion. They all occur because of the consumption of liquor. I mean, not primarily because of consumption of liquor, but a high incidence of crimes has been related to consumption of liquor. तो अगर आप इन चीजों को eliminate कर देते हो, इन चीजों को ban कर देते हो, though you might not be able to change the behavior of people, but still the crime rates will go down. And the other thing which we have talked about, the directive principles have been made non-justiciable. That is, they are not legally enforceable by the courts. Like if in case of fundamental rights, if they are violated, if government violates your fundamental rights, or if state takes away your fundamental rights, you can straight away go to the court and they can issue writs in form of mandamus, certiorari, quo warranto, habeas corpus, and make the government to and protect your fundamental rights. But there is no enforceability. They are not binding on the government. That is, government is not bound to implement them. Like as we have talked about the case of alcohol. Alcohol की जो ban है वो कुछ states में हुई है, जैसे कि it is Gujarat is a dry state. Similarly, Kerala, Bihar and Nagaland have also followed the line. So हर एक स्टेट नहीं करता. अब कोई सिटीजन जो है वो कोर्ट में नहीं जा सकता है कि नहीं जी गवर्नमेंट को बोले आप वो अल्कोहल बैन मतलब पूरी स्टेट में इम्प्लीमेंट करे, वो नहीं कर सकते बिकॉज these are non enforceable. You cannot go to court and issue directives from the court for the implementation of the alcohol ban. समझ आ गई बात? तो then they are the beacon for the courts, because they help courts in examining the validity and constitutionality of certain laws. जहां पर कोर्ट को लगता है कि डायरेक्टिव्स पे मतलब डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल्स को इम्प्लीमेंट करना है, तो ओवर रूल कर सकते हैं आर्टिकल 14 और 19 को in order to implement directive principles of the state policy. One more point which I would like to mention here is that directive principles were made non-justiciable because of the lower finances which the country had at that particular point of time, and most of the states were newly formed, so there was no chance of implementing both fundamental rights and directive principles at the same time, because it would have been very costly for the states to implement them instantly, right? This question might be popping in your mind, that why have directive principles being made non-justiciable and fundamental rights as justiciable? Because framers of the constitution maker wanted directive principles to be made as non-just. They wanted two types of rights, one justiciable and other non-justiciable. Fundamental rights were justiciable, that is, you can go for court for their violation, and directive principles were made non-justiciable. Finally, moving on and talking about Article 36. Now we will take up one by one all articles from 36 to 51. Firstly, Article 36 simply talks about that the term state has got the same meaning as in the part 3rd of the Indian Constitution. Article 12 जो है part 3rd का, part 3rd deals with fundamental rights. Yes, part 3rd deals with the fundamental rights, and article जो article कौन सा article deal करता है? Yes, Article 12 deals with the fundamental with the state. State का meaning जो है यहाँ पर, state का meaning होगा your union legislature, that is parliament and executive. Similarly, state legislature and executive, and likewise the urban and rural local body, that is municipal councils and panchayats. They all will comprise of the state. And in fact, जो major PSUs है जिनमें की government का stake है, जैसे कि LIC of India है, या for that matter of fact Coal India, even they comprise state under the Article 12 of the Indian Constitution. Now Article 37 simply says that since directive principles are justiciable, it doesn't mean that you can in a way आप इसको एक तरीके से इग्नोर कर सकते हो, या अगर इनको नॉन जस्टिसेबल बनाया गया है तो it doesn't mean कि that government of the day will ignore them completely. In fact, Article 37 says that they are fundamental in the governance of the country. It has been asked in UPSC in 2013 that which of the following principles is fundamental in the governance of the country. वहाँ पर fundamental rights भी दिया गया था और वहाँ पर directive principles of state policy भी दिया गया था. तो you have to those who had written directive principles of the state policy, it was correct for them, right? So now, since there is no compulsion on government of the day to implement them because they are non-justiciable, can government ignore them? No, government cannot ignore them in any condition. किसी भी हालत में वो ignore नहीं कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि there is a political compulsion, moral compulsion behind it. Now all these principles which we will look in the later slides, they include principles which are populist principles, like maternity benefit, like consumption, like ban on consumption of alcohol, establishment of cottage industries, ठीक है, इसी तरीके से maternity benefit, free legal aid to poor. These are all some of the populist principles which, if followed, can help the government of the day to improve its prospects. So government cannot ignore, because इसके पीछे जो sanction है वो public opinion है. अगर आपने इनको ignore किया तो there are chances that you might not come into power next time, जो कि होता है गवर्नमेंट्स के साथ, because वो वादे करते हैं और फिर वो वादों को फुलफिल नहीं कर पाते हैं. Then they have to then people turn against them, and as a result of which this anti-incumbency factor grows up, and then they have to leave their seats, and if developmental works are not taking place as per the principles enshrined in the directive principles, nobody will vote for you. ठीक है? Now let's talk about the classification of the directive principles, which is our second objective of the day. The classification of the directive principles of the state policy, there is no constitutional classification. They have been, for academic convenience, divided into liberal, intellectual, international, Gandhian and socialistic principles, जो कि हमने एक acronym यहाँ पर बनाया है, LIGS. आप GILS भी कर सकते हो, SLIG भी कर सकते हो, जैसे आपको याद रहता है, you can remember it. Now, the directive principles of the state policy, firstly, it includes the liberal intellectual principles, the Gandhian principles, socialistic principles, and international principles. All articles have been mentioned below their classification. Like liberal intellectual में you'll be having 44, 45, 48, 48A, 49 and 50 article. Gandhian में 40, 43, 43B, 46, 47, 48, and similarly socialistic में 38, 39, 39A, 41, 42, 43, 43A and 47. International में 51. Now what are these different principles? We will discuss it in our next slide. Thank you.